The latest report looking at the health and well-being of Kiwi children paints a very mixed picture. Hospital admissions for diseases commonly associated with low socioeconomic living conditions have begun to taper off. That's the good news, but they're still higher than they were in 2007. Child deaths from assault have stayed static at an average of 8 a year. A major concern is that every year 23 babies die from accidental suffocation, the majority of which happen before 16 weeks of age. Well, Dr Nikki Turner is Director of the Immunisation Advisory Centre at Auckland University. She's refusing to be disheartened and is with us now. Good morning, Nikki. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning.
First of all, just to point out, this report comes as part of this annual Children's Social Monitor, which was basically set up through concerns of the economic climate, effectively. Is that right?
That is correct. This report is monitoring what happens to children's health and social outcomes through an economic downturn. Because what we know internationally is that if we don't play it right, economic downturns often affect children's health outcomes more than anything else in a country. So we've been annually watching children's health outcomes, and this is a mixed picture, because what we have seen is since 2007 quite a marked rise in hospitalisation rates for our children for conditions that are quite strongly related to poverty backgrounds. But the better news is that for 2011 we've seen some of the rise in hospitalisations drop off for some conditions. But it is a very mixed picture, so there is some good news and some pretty depressing news.
Unfortunately, it sort of follows, though, doesn't it, with the fact that the economy is still just grinding along rather than taking off as we'd so desperately hoped, I guess. What about mental health in this situation? Is this monitored as well amongst the children, particularly, who are affected by low socioeconomic issues?
No, mental health is not part of the monitoring of this particular report. No.
So it's based on the sort of diseases which we expect youngsters who maybe are in mould-ridden houses, without insulation, without the proper types of clothing and nutrition, I guess.
I think that's right. You have to look at the whole package of things that affect children when they come from poverty backgrounds. And we particularly know in New Zealand that our housing condition is poor. There have been quite a few housing initiatives, but New Zealand has a great deal more to do to keep our houses warm and dry. We know that there are important initiatives like keeping houses smoke-free for children that we have made good progress on, but we have to do further. Undernutrition is a problem in New Zealand where children are getting fed but not getting good food. I mean, meat, good healthy vegetables are actually very hard to afford when household incomes are spare, when household incomes are tight. The other thing to remember is that the stress that these children are under when you've got very tight household incomes, and that affects children's immune system, so they tend to get illnesses worse and end up hospitalised. I think the conditions that are worrying us is there's significant rises in skin infections and respiratory tract infections and infections around that area. On a positive note, we have seen a reduction in conditions such as pneumonia, and that is likely to be due to the very effective approach New Zealand has now to immunisation rates and the introduction of the pneumococcal vaccine in 2008. So that's a very positive note for New Zealand, that we have done some improvements.
Yeah, hats off to you and your colleagues in that part of the profession for pushing on that. Of course, this comes down to government effectively in the end. They're trying to balance books. They're desperately trying to juggle through a relatively difficult economic time. Do you think, though, that they're getting it right, or do you think so much more should be being done, given the economic climate we've got?
This is not just a message for this government, this is a message for all of us in New Zealand, that in general New Zealand values its children less than probably other aspects of our society. So I think as a society in New Zealand we do need to look at how we distribute our wealth and how we look after our children, and particularly what strategies we put in place to support and support our children through recessions. And countries around the world do act very differently, and some countries are better at managing through recessions to reduce the impact of children than others. And I think as a country, all of us need to look very hard at how we look after our children.
Nikki, what sort of things specifically, what practical things are they doing so differently?
Well, there's lots of economic policies that are different, and there's taxation distribution that are different in many countries. But I'm a health expert, so I would particularly focus on the health angles of that. I would just highlight that there's no single solution here, but countries around the world have shown an ability to mitigate against poor children's health outcomes in times of recession. It is not inevitable, and you will be aware that in New Zealand we have significantly more children in what we would class as severe and significant hardship than other age groups in New Zealand society. And this is a deliberate choice of New Zealand. It's not this particular government. New Zealand has run it like this for a long time.
Nikki, very quickly, I just want to mention specifically the figures we saw about babies suffocating at most under the age of 16 weeks. This is from co-sharing in beds and that sort of thing. You're actually launching an initiative on this today, aren't you?
That is correct. There is a new initiative being launched today on this. There is a concern that parents are still sharing beds with young children, and the children are getting accidentally suffocated. The strong message for all of us to get out to all levels of our community is we do not bed share with young infants. They need to be put in a cot, in a Moses basket, in a pepe pod, or some equivalent sleeping where the children have their own firm mattress so the parents can't roll over and accidentally suffocate them. We are losing approximately 23 children a year to this single issue.
Wow, that's extraordinary, isn't it? And this new toolkit is being announced today. It's all about education there. Dr Nikki Turner, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.